Hi, everyone. My name is Brady Ross. I'm the president of ICF Arkansas, Oklahoma, and today I'm joined by Nathan Mellor. Nathan is a PCC professional certified coach, and he is the CEO of Strata Leadership. Nathan, thanks for coming on the YouTube channel.
Well, I really appreciate the invitation. I also appreciate very much your leadership, Brady, of stepping in and taking over for a two-state chapter is not a small thing. So thank you.
Well, I appreciate it. I work with a great board, and it's been a joy to get to team up with them so far. So, Nathan, tell us about your journey into coaching and what made you want to become a professional coach.
I I have one of those paths that was not direct, and so if someone's listening in who's thinking about becoming a coach, and maybe they have an experience that is not from point A to point B, maybe they can relate to it. But remember the first time I was really exposed to what coaching could be, and I was in a graduate course. I was pursuing my doctorate in organizational leadership, and there was a course that was focused on coaching. And the professor who had started an association back then, which was called the Professional Coaches and Mentors Association, PCMA. This was over when I was in LA at Pepperdine. He really talked about coaching in a way that made me think, wow, that's incredible that someone gets to do that. But they did not talk about it in a way that I thought to myself, and he's talking to me, or I should do that, or something along those lines. So I learned about coaching from an academic perspective, but it was still very early on in what coaching would become. And even the name, Professional Coaches and Mentors Association, kind of implies that coaching and mentoring and consulting and all these things were still a bit of a blend at that time. And so I thought it was an interesting topic, but I didn't think to myself, hey, that's something that I'm going to be able to do, mostly because it seemed like that was a good profession for people who were near the end of their career, or maybe they were even in retirement and were trying to give back. Then fast forward, I think it was another 6 or 7 years. I was working with a client. This was in 2011, and they asked if I could do some coaching. And this was a client that was important to me. I cared about them very much. I wanted to serve them well. And I said, well, I've had one course in this, and it was not even the full course. It was part of a course. And I said, if you're willing to let me, move forward with that background, I'd be happy to give it a shot. And they said, yes, please go ahead. And so I began coaching. And that was when coaching was more something that people did when things weren't going well. Maybe they had a good person that was not meeting the expectations, whatever it may have been, but it was largely meant to correct something that was broken. And so I went through the experience, coached people for a few months, and then thought to myself, I don't know that I want to do that again. Some time passed. I spoke at an event, and this guy comes up to me and he says, hey, I'd like for you to be my coach. And I said, well, I don't really do a lot of coaching. And he said, but I really would like for you to be my coach. And the guy, he won me over, and I said, okay, let's try that. And so I started coaching him. Then he unexpectedly became the CEO of a publicly traded company that opened up a door for me to start coaching more people. So I coached him and then a handful of other people. And these were high achieving, hungry people who wanted to make a difference. And it was totally different. So it went from that to then there was another company that said, could we hire you to work with us one day a week and provide coaching for the people that they would select? And I said yes. And then there was another one. So then I had 3 days a week where I was just coaching. And it was pretty phenomenal. And it was growing, and we were doing all these things. And then I started reading more about coaching. I started exploring more about coaching, and I began realizing what I was doing was kind of coaching. And so what I was doing really was well intended, but it was a lot of consulting, very personalized training, and some coaching, probably more consulting than coaching, though. And so I started learning and trying to think of things in a different way and began to change the way I looked at coaching quite a bit. And I'll stop there, but I moved away from the model where I was coaching like for one company, and then they would assign whoever they wanted me to coach that way, and began to just work exclusively with individuals that is often paid for by their company. Their company was the sponsor and they were the client. But it began to shift how I began coaching and how I did coaching as a professional around that time.
Mhm. I love hearing your story, and I love how, as you talked, you brought up some of the distinctions between coaching and consulting and coaching and mentoring that can be hard for people who are new to coaching to understand. But as professional ICF certified coaches, these distinctions are very important to us. So I'd be curious to know, one, what your specialty is in coaching now, and then two, how
Mhm.
your approach in coaching those people differs from someone who might be more of a coach or a
Sure.
consultant or a mentor.
For those listening in who are already coaches, I resisted signing up for International Coaching Federation because I thought, well, it's just a marketing thing or maybe just an association, and I really didn't need it. Um, my schedule was full, and I thought that was enough. But then when I began to research more and learn more, I thought, no, I'm being in some ways disrespectful to the profession. And it's important that people who are in coaching recognize that for this to truly be a profession, there has to really be an ethical standard that we're choosing to abide by. Then there has to be a place where we are thinking more deeply and more from a more scientifically rooted even perspective on what does coaching look like and what are the competencies needed to be a good coach. And so where I work at Strata Leadership, we decided that we wanted to make that an important part of our future. And so we started requiring all of our coaches to be ICF credentialed or to be in the process of becoming ICF credentialed. And I'll explain why. One of the things that ICF does really well is that they distinguish between the value of someone who is a coach, and this is a person that is partnering with you to help you explore what your potential might be, to help you think about where you want to go from where you are now. But it's largely focused on the future. It's about identifying what I need to do to get from here to there. What obstacles do I need to consider? What opportunities do I need to explore? But it's an action-oriented process by which a client is thinking about their future and taking steps towards that future, that desired future. That's a really important piece of the puzzle. But that coaching piece is different than some other really important professions. Most coaches that you will find have a high regard for other helping professions, like a counselor or a therapist. Matter of fact, it is not uncommon for some of the most successful executives that I work with, and they speak about this openly. Some of the most successful executives I work with will have a therapist or counselor to help them often process the past. Now, not all counseling is focused on the past, but a lot of it is looking back at your life, seeing what's happened in the past, and then let's think about what that means. And then how does it impact you today? And then how do I process that, which is extremely helpful. So a counselor is often focused on your life in the past. Someone like a mentor is someone who might be on the same path that you're on. Maybe they're farther down the road than you are. Maybe you are at this, maybe you're at the vice president level and they're in the C-suite, but they had been on the same path. And they're going to tell you what they had experienced. And then you're going to try to apply their experiences to your experiences. But it's typically meant for the present. I'm trying to learn some competencies and perspectives from someone who understands my skill set and understands my profession. Now, what's interesting is a coach does not need to be someone who has your shared profession. Matter of fact, I could argue that some of the more effective coaches are more effective because they're not trying to tell you how they did it. They're not trying to say, when I was in that role 17 years ago, that could be valuable, but this is a different thing. So what you'll find is that often people have a counselor to help them with the past, a mentor to help them with the profession itself, often for the current, for present day. And then you've got the coach who's helping you think about what's coming next. Now, this is a concept called prospection. And prospection is the belief that who you are today is shaped not just by who you've been in the past, but by how you view the future, what you think will happen in the future. So, what a coach does is they allow you as a client to consider your preferred future and then to have someone who can help you process that, to think about that future. And I find that to be extremely helpful because most people don't have the time to stop and think. So I focused, my practice is focused primarily on executive leaders, mostly because I love working with leaders. I find them to be a group that is often misunderstood. They go through a lot. It's a hard thing to be a leader, and I always say that whatever you think it is, you didn't get a good enough deal because this is overrated. It is tough work to be a leader. And so I really enjoy being able to partner with executive leaders to have them think about their future. And for many of them, they need a confidential place where they can talk about that without having to worry about it. They need a safe place, a place that they can not have to perform. They can express, this is what I'm concerned about, this is what I'm thinking about, and have a thought partner who can process that with them along the way. And so that's where I focus is on the executive leadership typically, not always, but it generally ends up being people in leadership roles. And it's a broad range. It's healthcare and it's marketing and it's manufacturing and oil and gas. It's large scale construction. Trying to think just through the lists. It's banking. But I love what I get to do in part because every day is going to be different. Another big one is the world of insurance. So
Mm,
being able to think with people, if you love people and you want to help them thrive, then coaching is a great investment of your life. And it's something that I look forward to now more than I've ever looked forward to it. And now I've had over 4,000 documented coaching sessions. And I would say that I love coaching more now than ever. It has grown.
I love that. I love hearing your passion for coaching, and I really like the terms that you use to explain coaching. And one thing that I'll often tell people when I'm explaining coaching to them is that a coach may not necessarily be a subject matter expert, but what we
Hmm.
are experts in is we're experts in the process. And it's a process that has
Yeah,
been proven as a partnership, like you said, to help people think in new ways and then design action to help them get to where they want to go in the future. So thank you for sharing that, Nathan. Before we wrap
yeah.
up, what's in addition to what you've shared so far, what's one more thing that you think people should know about professional coaching based on the core competencies of the ICF?
You know, there was an author that I thought had a really helpful title of a book, and it was a really good book, but it was Coach the Person, Not the Problem. And I've always found that to be a helpful mantra in my head of I'm staying with this person so that they can process their problem because they know themselves better than anybody else can. So when you're dealing with a professional coach, they are working with the belief that you are the best person poised to decide how best to move forward. And I find that to be fascinating. And so it starts with a basis of trust. So every coaching session, when I start off with a client, we're going to say something like, "So, where'd you like to focus today? What is your goal today? What would it look like if we were to be successful in this session today?" And I bring that up because the coaching topic is chosen by the client. They are driving this car. They get to decide where we go. And I say that because sometimes people come into coaching and they really were thinking consulting. They would like for me to listen to the challenge they're up against and solve the problem. And I got to tell you, there's sometimes where I wish I could just jump in and do that. But it's not coaching, that's consulting. So if you're going to a coach right now who's telling you what to do, I would tell you that may be a good consultant, but that's not coaching. And I don't even mean that as a overly negative thing. The vocabulary continues to shift. But I would say this: if you are looking for a coach, look for someone who has those standards that I think are consistent with the International Coaching Federation. You do not have to be an ICF credentialed coach to be a good coach. You can have an ICF credential and be a bad coach. Now, typically, you're gonna run into some ethical issues there. But why take the risk if you have access to people who are proving to you the seriousness of their commitment to coaching by going through extensive training, by dealing with extensive mentoring, so that they can provide you something that is quality? And so if you're going to choose, it's kind of like two cars sitting side by side, and one of them has a 100,000-mile warranty bumper to bumper, and the other one doesn't. Just seems like it might be a better deal to go with something that stands behind the work a little bit more.
Yes, absolutely. 100% agree. Nathan, thanks again for coming onto our channel, sharing about your perspective and your journey in coaching. And thank you for all that you're doing for the world of coaching.
It's a privilege to be a part of it. And I'll tell you, as a coach who gets coached, there's something special about having another human walk beside you and have you think about the future together. It is a powerful thing.
Yes, couldn't agree more. Thanks again, Nathan.
Thank you.